Welcome once again to the Blanket Fort here in the Crippen household.
Whoop whoop.
The baby is asleep, so it's time to chat about parenting, have some laughs and relax as we do some arts and crafts. That almost rhymed.
Very good.
So Emma, what are we talking about this episode?
This episode we are talking about the realities of being a parent.
This episode is called First Time Parents. Whether you're listening to this in the middle of the night, while breastfeeding, cleaning, driving, working, whatever, it's time to unwind. Here with me, I'm Elliot, Babata Lily, and as always, my wife Emma, Mamata Lily. Do you want to say hello?
I feel like you introduced me. I don't have to say anything.
Do you want to say something about you? Who are you, Emma? What defines you as a person?
I'm Emma. I'm a translator. And I come from a huge family, so I have 5 sisters, and I'm a quadruplet, so it means I have 3 other people who are the same age as me and look very like me.
Yes, identical quadruplet.
Identical.
See, I said she was the interesting one.
I am. Although I would say nowadays we look quite different because, you know, we've all gone through like different stages in life, as in some people had babies sooner. So my sister recently just had her baby. But now we're all parents, so it is interesting to compare.
We've got a lot of children in the family, in my adopted family, in your family.
In my family, yeah, a lot.
So we've had quite a lot of experience
so my parents have 14 grandchildren. Is that right?
That seems a lot, but I think you might be close.
1 second. It's 12. So 12 grandchildren. So it's a lot.
Whereas I'm an only child, so very small.
So your parents have 1 grandchild.
Yeah, that's it. What craft are we doing today in this episode?
I think we are doing some colouring today.
Yeah. Do you like those like adult colouring books? They were kind of all the rage, I felt, at one point. I feel like I see less of them now.
I just prefer drawing myself, to be honest. But you definitely like them more.
I quite like. It's quite therapeutic doing some colouring.
I think I like more of a... Well, I guess you could be more creative with it. I just prefer to sit there and draw something.
Well, stay tuned till the end to see how that turns out, whether you like how the colouring has gone.
Yeah. I have to remember who did this colouring. It was so long ago.
I think it was me.
Was it you? Okay.
Yeah. Well, we could say it's you. It's
fine.
Whatever.
Depends what it looks like. Can't remember.
You'll have to decide at the end whether you think it was me or Emma that did the colouring.
Yeah. You might be able to tell from the hands.
Yeah, probably. So I suppose it'd be useful to give a bit of background around our Lily. Our daughter is currently 2.
Yeah, just
2, just turned 2. And so realities of parenting it feels like it's been quite a while since she was like a baby.
Yeah.
But I suppose just remembering what it was like
When
before.
some people say it flies by, and it does in a certain extent. But when you're going through it, it feels like an awful long time.
Feels like years.
Yeah.
Oh, it has been years.
More years than 2 years.
Yeah. And then you kind of forget you've got the whole pregnancy as well.
Oh, yeah.
You can tell from that Emma did not have a good pregnancy. But we'll come to that at another point.
I'm sure we'll cover it in another episode. When people say it's a magical, beautiful time, it is not.
So it feels like quite a while now since we were young and free. Is that
young and free?
You know, pre Lily, pre having children.
Yeah.
We only have 1 child at the moment, so but it still feels like a long time ago.
It does.
I'm trying to remember what life was like.
Yeah.
But your sister's just had a baby as well.
Yeah.
We've got lots of friends who have children, so it's kind of sharing the different experiences of going through all that. Kind of today's topic is covering the whole process. What do you think your expectations were before becoming a parent?
I mean, I think they were semi-realistic because I'd say rather large, very large family. So I have 5 sisters, and before we had Lily, all but one of them had children already. So I've grown up along, because two of my sisters much older, kind of I saw them raising their children when I was quite young, and then my other two sisters. So therefore, it means like I saw them when they had their children, and you know, it does help you get some reality because you see them go through those struggles and sleepless nights. But I will say there is a big difference between babysitting your nephews and nieces and having a child 24/7.
Yeah.
So, like, the energy you can spend playing with them and running around with them. I remember I was at a park with one of our oldest nephews, Adam, and one of the parents said to me, "You're not his mum, are you?" And I was like, "No, how can you tell?" I was like, "You're really involved in the game and you're putting 100% in." And she was like, "I thought there's no way she could have that much energy and be his parent."
Yeah.
And now, at the time, I was quite cocky in my head and being like, I'll be the same when I have a kid.
Yeah.
I'll be 100% involved. I'll be this energetic. I don't know what they're talking about. And now I know. As in, yeah, I'm involved in the park, but I also quite like a bit of a sit down. You know, I want to rest a bit.
I think that was the key thing for me. I mean, I'm an only child, so...
Yeah, very different experience.
Yeah, no other thing to draw on. But I've been very involved with your family.
Yes.
We'd been dating quite a long time, so I've been very involved with looking after some of your nieces and nephews. Your family are very close.
Yeah.
So all of that. And like you say, I was very, very involved in playing with the other kids. We're both quite child-friendly people. You know, like
well, all of the words were very immature.
Yeah,
like we liked playing
definitely.
Tig, or some people call tag, you know.
Yeah, it.
No,
we're on a whole nother topic here. Goodness me.
Let's not get to that debate. We're both quite like silly games and things.
Yeah. We always kind of knew we wanted children, and like we were always going to be...
Well, this is a separate issue, but when one of my sisters was going through a difficult breakthrough, I was saying it was really key that when we first met, we already knew me and Elliot wanted very similar life goals. So, like, not in the first conversation, but, like, within dating very soon, we both had said we wanted children, you know, we'd say names and stuff.
But despite all that, it's definitely not as I expected.
It's not idyllic, is it?
No, like you were saying, just about the energy levels. I think I had not, in my head, it was like a sprint. You know, like you get through the difficult baby stage, and then you have lots of energy. Like we were good with playing with children. We like really enjoyed it, but you realise it is such a marathon. Like, and you're tired all the time, and it does get easier, but it also gets harder.
This is my sister Kirsty's just had her little girl. She was like, "Oh, how do you do? Does the sleep get better?" And I was like, "I mean, it does when they're a toddler. As a baby, I would say no. You just cope better. You just learn to live without sleep." And she was like, "That's not helpful." But then I talked to her yesterday, and she was like, "You're right. I just can do stuff on less sleep. Like I've just learned I can cope with that less sleep, and I'm just doing it."
We'll talk about sleep
in a future podcast.
In another episode that we've already recorded.
Yeah.
But I suppose sleep's just one element of it. It's a huge part, but we're reminded of this, I suppose, currently because we're going through another big challenge, and this is, you know, the reality of parenting, that it it is hard in different ways all the way through. And I really hadn't expected this, in that I was really naive and I thought parenting and child development was like a linear line. I was thinking, you know, it starts off at this point and we just slowly get better. They learn skills and it goes, you know, it gets better. I never realised that you have regressions and that behaviours come and go and you can move backwards. I'm like, what is this? Moving like... Yeah. So at the moment we've got the huge challenge of a toddler who's having tantrums, specifically around not wearing any clothes.
Yeah, and it's really difficult because sometimes the techniques I use work, and I think I've done it in that I'm like, great, we had like a race to get dressed, and that works sometimes well, but the problem is sometimes it doesn't work. And it's when I was saying to Elliot one night, I've cracked it, I went in a room, I did the race, she wore pants, I was like, great, we've done something, you can go to bed now. Turns out it doesn't work every day, and even when it does semi-work... because she's a toddler getting dressed, sometimes the clothes aren't on properly, but she doesn't want your help to put them on properly. So now, my current technique is, this may be a tip, it might not work, is I get dressed and then pretend I have a problem, and she has to help me, or Elliot has to help me to show it's okay to ask for help when you're getting dressed. Like, you don't have to be independent. This has not currently worked yet, but I'm hoping slowly it gets into her brain that that's an okay thing.
I suppose the overarching theme of what we're talking about is constantly just going to be, and parenting is hard. Like,
yeah.
It's not easy. And it's...
Well, this is another podcast I was listening to.
Oh, yeah.
With, I can't remember what her name is. She was in The Big Bang Theory, Amy.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
She does a podcast kind of about parenting, I think. And she was saying how she respects that some people say they're too selfish to have children, in that she was like, it is a full-time job. Like, it is hard, and you have to give up a lot. That's just the reality of it. So, like, if you say you're too selfish, you're probably right, because it's a very selfless job. You can't sit there and go, I really want to do this now, because you're going to have to, you know, factor in your child.
Yeah. And it just seems impossible sometimes. Like, we've been going through quite a good phase recently where we've been able to do more and more. We've been able to go out more. You know, we got through the baby phase. I thought, yes, we're finally here. We can do stuff.
Yeah.
But now we're back in a phase where it feels just impossible to leave the house.
Yeah. Because we have to get her dressed. And if we have to get her dressed, she's going to have a tantrum.
Yeah. And it's just so like, oh, it's just this weight on you because it's just, everything feels impossible. It definitely reminds me of those early baby days, because I know a lot of parents have a similar experience, and we did at times. You know, when you've got a newborn and it just, getting out of the house feels really hard. It's just constantly draining on you, that everything feels difficult.
And what's harder, some parents seem to cope wonderfully. So
or seem to cope wonderfully.
That's what I mean.
That's the thing.
You see them and they go, oh, we've been to a concert with our baby, or we've been to, like, on a huge hike. And you're like, how? How have you been to, like, Glastonbury or something with your child? Like, I see them on TikTok and they're like, it was the best experience. And I'm like, was it?
Yeah.
Like, either your child is beautifully behaved, or you're just not showing us when they had, like, completely lost it and, you know.
Well, we were a bit like that. We went on holiday with Lily when she was 6 weeks old in a heat wave. And it was really challenging. But we had a good time-ish. Yeah. But, you know, it was hard. I came back from that thinking, well, if we can do that, we can manage anything. Yeah, that's true. It was quite fun though, actually. But yeah, I think this is another topic for another day. But it was more interesting seeing our friends without children, like, react to us having to give things up. So we were going to go on a walk, and one of my best friends was like, oh, we can still go on the walk. Like, we'd made it only like 10 minutes into the walk, but it was too hot. Lily wasn't happy, and I was just like, no, we're going to have to go back because it's just too hot. And my friend was like, no, it'll be fine. And I felt like being like, you don't understand. It doesn't matter what we want to do right now. It matters that Lily's uncomfortable and she's not going to be happy for the rest of this walk. And I don't want to have to force her to be happy. And I don't want to make myself annoyed because she's annoyed. So we're just going to have to call it a day. Like, I know for you, we're on holiday and you want to do something. But I felt like being like, this is... when you don't have a child, you think, oh, they can power through. And sometimes you've got to call it a day. And you've got to be like, no, we're just going to go back and enjoy ourselves and make the most of the day back up where we were staying, rather than trying to force this walk that we really wanted to do. So... yeah, and that's what parenting's all about, isn't it? It's putting the child first often and having to compromise an awful lot. And, you know, it's a very different life to having pre-children.
I think, though, you can make most of the moments when you're just happy at home, to be honest. It's like easy, you can control the environment. It's just so much nicer.
I mean, obviously there's moments that are pure joy, and there's so many things you learn to appreciate in life, and
especially now she's learning words, it's very exciting. So when she can actually say something to you, it's just very exciting.
Or even all through the baby phase, you know, like every time they learn a new skill, it's kind of like, wow, look, they can do this. They can wave, they can stick their tongue out. If/when we decide to have a second child, it won't be as special. Going through it the first time is,
you're like, wow, you can do that. I think the second one I'll be like, yeah, your sibling is running around and saying full sentences. This doesn't seem quite as impressive anymore.
Yeah. I suppose this is the joy of doing something like this, a podcast, is just being able to link up with other parents and share all of our experiences, whether they're positive or negative. you know,
Yeah.
and realizing that sometimes what we're experiencing is very common, because often as parents we think,
well, I
don't know,
literally was Googling like how to force your child to wear clothes. And there were so many people who were like, yeah, they just grew out of it. Like it was like a 3-month period. And Elliot was really depressed because I said, a lot of people said it was about a 2-3 month period.
This annoys me like no end with parenting. Like I remember in the early days as well, when you Google stuff about like, when do they start sleeping more? When do they start doing this? And the answers are often just, well, you know, in like a year's time, they'll likely grow out of it and they'll naturally get better. You know, some parents like, oh, I have a 5-year-old, they still do that. I'm like, that is really depressing. I'm really struggling now. I'm hoping you're saying in like a month, not like 5 years.
Yeah.
But, you know, you like you say, you adapt and get used to it. I don't know what advice I can offer if you're going through being a new parent at the moment and it's really tough. Hang in there.
I think it does get... Also, compare. This is vital, because struggles you have, somebody else might not have, but they might have another struggle. And then you feel almost grateful you don't have that struggle.
It's true. Most recently, like, as we've said, we've been really struggling with Lily getting dressed and having tantrums about wearing any clothes at all.
Ironically, not the accessories, though. Hats and shoes, completely fine.
Yeah.
And jewellery, also fine. Just anything that makes it acceptable to go in public.
Yeah. But you were talking with another parent at church recently, weren't you? And it was just refreshing to hear other challenges that we don't have.
So they were saying how their child only drinks milk, doesn't really want to eat. And like, I didn't be that terrible person. Oh, our child eats everything. I was just like, oh yeah, that's difficult. Our child won't get dressed. It's a big problem. But it made me feel better that I'm like, well, actually, Lily's never had a problem with eating. Although my husband says this is a what we call the Womble gene, because my family we call the Wombles.
That's... We'll just throw that in there. I feel like it needs more explanation, but maybe it doesn't.
Basically, my family all eat well. None of our children... I think it's genetics, because we did do baby-led weaning, but I know some people do that, and it doesn't necessarily mean your child's not picky. And I'm not saying Lily, 100 times will eat everything, but she always has a good appetite and will always eat.
Yeah.
She never has a phase where... When I worry she's not eating, she's still eating more than most toddlers.
Yeah.
Like, she's a good eater.
Yeah. It's like at nursery, isn't it? Some parents, you pick them up and the nursery staff say like, oh, they refused to eat their lunch today. They just weren't into it or whatever. Like, Lily, nope, every day she had 3 or 4 portions.
Yeah. Which does sometimes make me worry how big the portions in the nursery are.
And many of you will know Lily if you're friends of ours. But she's not like a really fat toddler.
No.
Like, I don't know where she puts all this food. She is tall.
It's probably fining us off when we're trying to dress her.
Lying on the floor screaming. But yeah, it's a problem we don't have and other people do have. And you kind of go, that's kind of, at least we don't have that.
Which I know sounds horrible, but it makes you grateful for the problems you don't have. And it makes you realise that each child has their thing.
Yeah.
So like Lily's thing at the minute, her tantrum is to do with clothes.
Yeah.
Other kids have tantrums to do with food. Like each kid is different. But it makes you kind of grateful that each child is different, and you're like, oh, well, we are good at that thing, or we do better at this thing. Like,
I mean, particularly in the toddler stage where you're going through that sort of stuff. But even as a young child, like, Lily slept fairly well from an early age. I mean, not, we still struggled with sleep.
Yeah.
But...
And you'll hear in a future podcast, but compared to one of my sister's children who sleep fantastically, not like that. She slept well for her age, not,
Yeah, I mean, where do you judge the line on any of these things?
Yeah.
There's always going to be children that do things better or do things worse, but...
Well, it does make me think of kids with ADHD and stuff. It must be really difficult, like, if you don't always see a linear progression. Because I'm on a lot of Bluey groups, and a lot of them really like Muffin because she shows a lot of traits of that, and I think that's quite refreshing to see that in... a lot of stuff.
So, Bluey, the Australian TV show that's on Disney. We'll talk about that as well in many future episodes. But
probably every episode.
We're a big fan of it, so
and we have to watch it a lot.
Too. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on what we're discussing as well. How are the realities of parenthood for you if you're a first-time parent? What were your expectations before you had your children, and how is it different now? Do get involved in the conversation. This project is all about connecting us up so we can talk together, not just you listening to us. And if you've had different experiences to us, that's fantastic. We'd love to hear them. So either comment below if you're watching this on YouTube, or engage or send us messages over on our Instagram account, which is, or both YouTube and Instagram are at don'twakethebaby_podcast. Or you can talk directly with our community of listeners and share stories with us and with others about all these topics over in our Facebook group chat. You can find all the links and details to those over on our webpage, which is www.kairosmovement.org.uk/don'twakethebaby. I think that's another of my expectation versus reality things, where I think beforehand I was always like, I really don't want to be those parents who their whole life revolves around just their children, talking about their children, just all of that. And I thought, oh, well, we'll still retain our own lives, like we'll still do stuff we like, but no, that kind of doesn't happen. You accept that, like, you are a parent now, like it almost becomes your identity. It's so weird. It
does, but it's quite nice in some ways, in that I like talking to other mums and we have a lot of key similar experiences that do make you who you are.
It brings you a lot in common with others, doesn't it? Like you've gone through a shared experience,
especially
where they're all different but similarities.
Bad childbirth stories, nothing bonds you more.
We'll definitely cover that in a future episode. Talk about childbirth.
Once you've shared them, you're a lot closer. You feel like you know them, you've both been through this experience, even if it's different stories. I know some people hate this as well in mums groups. They're like, I don't want to hear about people's birth stories. So if we come to one of those podcast episodes and you don't want to hear about it, just skip it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like our podcast, it is designed for existing parents. If you're about to be a new parent or thinking of being a parent, I would hope that we portray a positive light, but I have a feeling as parents we tend to share a lot more of the negative, the humorous, the tantrums, the challenges than we do. I mean, maybe we need to try and intentionally focus on sharing some of the highlights, the positive moments, but it's a lot more fun to discuss the things that go wrong.
Yeah, definitely. I think people want to hear more stuff that goes wrong.
Yeah. So I was just wondering what, thinking about before and after that transition from being a non-parent to a parent, what hobbies and things did you have before becoming a parent that have kind of fell by the wayside? Or aspects of you that you feel like have had to compromise and let go of?
I mean, to be honest, we both aren't hugely social, so that didn't really take a big dip.
Yeah, I mean, with a newborn, you do spend a lot of your time shut away a bit, don't you? You kind of like...
In regards to that, though, we did have a baby in COVID as well. So.
Yeah, I mean, some people had like proper lockdown babies. We were near the end of COVID, so we weren't during a lockdown, but we were still in
you couldn't go to a lot of appointments with me early on.
We're in that pandemic phase where we still consider Lily to be a kind of lockdown baby.
Yeah.
And there's lots of stories there where you don't see anyone.
Yeah. I think we used to do a lot of painting. I used to do a lot of art. I try and do crafts with Lily. Or, like, you'll see in a future video, I made loads of little dolls and little houses for her to play with for a Christmas present. I'm trying to think what else I did. It's so hard. It seems so long ago. I'm like, what did I do? Who was I?
I mean, just to pick up on the crafting thing, I mean, hopefully that's why we've included it as part of what we're doing here, is it gives us an excuse. And we've got lots of other friends as well who are into crafting, but it's quite hard to make time to do that stuff for yourself. But I think that's important.
You often envisage doing these things with a toddler and you're like, it'll be a wonderful activity. And then they spend 10 minutes on it and they're like, I'm done. And you're like, I was hoping this could be a 20-minute thing. Like, I thought this would be really relaxing and nice. It is good. Lily does really like drawing at the minute, which is handy for anywhere you go, but it's still not a really long activity.
But we're guilty of this as anyone. You kind of see other parents putting on, these are the activities we've done. Look at these things my kid's done. And we do the same. And I think people think like, they're so creative. They do all these things.
Yeah.
And what they don't know is that the activity lasted like 10 minutes maximum.
Each activity, like, they did so much that day. Yeah, in like a 40-minute period with 4 different things.
And then they were watching TV.
Yeah. And then I felt like I've done a lot of stuff with the child now. I think they're allowed to just sit and...
So arts and crafts stuff, we did a fair amount of. I suppose in that regard...
We went on long walks, a lot of walks.
Yeah.
We liked going to like... if anyone's in our area, we like going to Brimham Rocks and stuff. We still go with Lily, but significantly less.
Yeah, like trips out, walks in the woods, that sort of thing. Even holidays.
Yeah.
All of that we did a lot more of pre-children, which is understandable. But you kind of... I don't think you really realise how much you give up. And like that sense of like holidays will, for a long time, never quite be the same. Like,
no, it's not going to be the same relaxing atmosphere.
Stressful.
Yeah. Because your child's in a new place. I mean, Lily's quite good in that she's kind of happy as long as both me and Baba are there. But it's also the case of, it's all a bit overstimulating the first day. Because she's normally fine 3 days in, but that's 3 days, of your holiday that you've paid to be somewhere really nice and your child's kind of acting up because they're not used to it. So typically, always by the end of the holiday, she's really likes it and is beautifully behaved. But...
And even when she was younger, it's kind of the same, isn't it? Like, they might not act up in the same way that they do as a toddler, but they, they struggle sleeping or refuse to feed, or like just the throwing them out of their routine is always challenging. It's always quite hard to explain that to people because, again, pre-children, you never quite really realise how much you've got to stick with that routine.
Yeah.
And like nap times and stuff, it like...
Well, a lot of them are just non-negotiable. As in, if Lily doesn't have her nap at the right time, it's just not... The rest of the day's gone. Because you can have a moody, tantrum-filled toddler. And even as a baby, she'd be grouchy the rest of the day.
And that's one of those things, isn't it, where I suspect however your child acts, as parents, we probably envy each other. Yeah. So I suspect those that, their children nap whenever, just on them, just out and about, are probably looking at us and going, I wish my child napped at a set time and was regular and
you knew what to do when you were doing stuff.
Whereas we look at people that have their child can nap any time out and about just when they're tired, and we go, that's great.
You could take them anywhere.
We have to get home for a certain time and put them in a bed. Otherwise, or a cot, whatever age they are. Otherwise, she won't sleep.
No.
And you've got to keep to that routine. It's benefited us as well, so... But,
And we're both people who quite like routine, so...
Yeah. I was trying to think, before having Lily, I did a lot more photography and, I do creative stuff, but in other ways, like not just arts and crafts, but, I enjoy doing that sort of stuff, but I do a lot less of that now.
I would say you do start doing other stuff, though. So, if people don't know, I'm getting into fitness now, which I haven't been into for years. It kind of is 1 hour a week I do, and then I try and do, at the minute, like 10-20 minutes each night of just like weightlifting. But I never was into that prior to child, and then suddenly I think your perspective changes, and suddenly I was like, you know what, I just want to be strong. Like, I want to be healthy. I'm going to start putting an emphasis on that.
The other thing that changed, well, not sort of changed, but we kind of intentionally changed, which is really bizarre, I suppose, is we both kind of went out and bought dad clothes and mum clothes.
Yes, yeah.
And not that we were both particularly into fashion or anything like that beforehand.
Most of my family will say Emma is not fashionable. Because I still do now to a certain extent, just wear sporty clothes all the time.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I think people have an interesting view of me. Was it at Lily's dedication, those feedback things for Lily to read when she was older?
I think people think you're quite stylish.
Do they? Yeah. I thought people were saying it in jest.
No, I think people were generally saying you were stylish.
Oh, I thought people were saying like, oh, your Baba has an interesting sense of style.
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't know if it's in comparative to her mother. They're like, oh, he dresses pretty well. Your mum's always pretty casual.
But yeah, we then kind of moved to like more... I think we did actually opposite things. You moved to like as comfy clothes as possible.
Yeah.
Whereas I was like, I want to look like a father.
Yeah. I think he was like, I want to look a bit older. I want to,
Maybe
look
it's
like
like
that figure.
my slight insecurities that I'm slightly younger than
He
you.
is, yeah.
And all of our friend group
About my age.
and other parent friends tend to be older than me.
Yeah.
I'm one of the youngest millennials of our millennial cohort. So I'm always like, I want to look like an older
Yeah,
person.
whereas I'm 2.5 years older, so I feel like I'm right in the mid-millennial group. But it's interesting because my sister Kirsty, who's just had a baby, she was like, you had your hair cut shorter afterwards, and she's kind of done that now. She's had a bit cut off, she's going to have some more cut off later. And she was like, oh, what did you start doing with mum style? And I was like, honestly, I just did whatever made my life easier. So I cut my hair shorter because it was quicker to dry and easier to style. Like, I wore clothes that were comfortable and quick to put on. And especially, this is a different thing, but if you have a C-section, you can't, just suddenly be fashionable. You want comfort because you've been through a lot. It's painful. You want to feel secure. Like, very different. I would also say I used to wear more like... I'm actually wearing quite short shorts today, but I used to wear shorter things, and I'm slowly... I think this is a confidence thing, though. Like, after I'd given birth, I didn't feel that attractive. Whereas now I'm doing more fitness and stuff, I'm slowly feeling more like myself pre-baby, so I'm getting more confident again in like actually having my legs out and stuff. So, but honestly, just wear what you like, because most of the time nobody bothers. Like, nobody cares as much as you care about what you look like.
You'd never think, would you, that all these things are so influenced by having a child? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, every aspect of your life seems to be affected by a little baby that comes into your life and like changes how you view yourself, your fashion, like
your finances.
Life. Oh yeah, I suppose that's definitely one thing that I had not anticipated before having a baby was.
Well, I don't think we ever considered how expensive nursery would be.
Well, just anything. Like, every stage, things surprise me how much it costs, and I know, as we're living through this, we're going through a cost of living crisis. Yeah. And again, that's another thing I'm sure we'll discuss later is, parenting in this day and age is very different to how our parents experienced it. I think... And
I'm not saying it wasn't hard. I just think that we have much different challenges.
Yeah, and a lot of those do relate to things like cost and availability of stuff. But...
Once again, topic for a different time. But that shocked me. Like, when I was like, so you're saying... the majority of my wage will go on childcare. Yeah. It's more expensive than our rent.
Yeah, very expensive. But at every stage, like when she was younger and we were doing baby-led weaning, I never thought that things like our grocery bill and shopping would go up significantly. Not until, I imagine it as a family as we grow. You have
maybe when you have like 2 kids that are eating through the house. Even 6-7-year-olds, you think, oh, they eat more. Yeah,
but as a baby, I was thinking, it won't cost us that much more. Yeah. But you don't realise how much stuff gets thrown on the floor. It just goes straight in the bin.
A lot of food waste.
How many things you have to cook just so that they have a choice of food and then they don't eat any of it. And then it's like, well, I suppose I should eat it. But then I'm like, what meals do I mean, diet is another thing that's changed quite a lot. I mean, I don't really have meals anymore. I basically eat Lily's leftovers for most of my meals now.
I'm gluten intolerant, so most of the time I can't eat Lily's food, which is fortunate for me, but it means poor Elliot gets most of the leftovers because I'm like, we can't waste this.
Also, like before we had a baby, you could avoid temptation by not buying stuff.
Yeah, just not having it in the house.
Whereas now, like, we need snacks in for Lily. We need crisps and stuff, and we tried to get her to eat healthily, but whatever you do, like, you often need a stock of
definitely
unhealthy things to, like,
if you're going on a trip out.
Yeah.
You need something that...
road trips and things.
Yeah. Take some healthy options, but take stuff they're definitely going to eat and going to distract them.
And the problem is, because that's now in our house constantly, it's really hard to not eat it. Or, like, Lily eats half a donut we've bought from Lidl, and I'm like, well, I shouldn't eat it, but I'm not going to throw it in the bin.
Yeah, because that's, it's going to waste. Yeah.
So the Don't Wake the Baby podcast that you're listening to is in partnership with the Kairos Movement, a project by the Methodist Church, which we're a part of. Kairos is a pick and mix network of groups and activities around Yorkshire some spiritual, some for community, some for helping others. And you can pick and choose what works for you to help you flourish. And we're also supported by the Methodist Church, which I work for, and which Emma volunteers for.
I volunteer for.
We're both very involved. You can find out more about Kairos and the project here and everything else over on our webpage, www.kairosmovement.org.uk/Don't Wake the Baby. I suppose the other difference becoming a parent is the expectations and realities of what our parents expect, and they had a different experience raising us, and
they were taught different things.
Yeah, and they have expectations of how we might raise our children, and that often does differ quite a lot from how we're doing things. And as we go on, a lot of our episodes in the future that you'll listen to are going to focus partly around how things have kind of changed from when we were young. We'll talk about that quite a bit around different topics and what the differences are. I suppose your parents were more aware because your family already had quite a lot of children in this generation.
Yeah. So they're pretty prepared for like more modern parenting styles. But once again, we're all different. So we all parent slightly differently. It is true. I saw a thing on TikTok about grandmas and babies wearing hats, and my mum is that person. Newborn baby has to be wearing a hat. And I'm like, Mum, our baby was a summer baby. And my sister Kirsty's new baby is a summer baby.
Not only a summer baby, we were both born in like a heat wave.
Yeah. And Mum's still very adamant, why isn't the baby wearing a hat?
Yeah.
And I saw on TikTok, they're like, all grandmas are like, why isn't the baby wearing a hat? I was like, yeah. That's exactly what it's like. It's the thing of just in her head, a baby should always be wearing a hat. Why wouldn't it be wearing a hat? It'll get cold. And I'm like, it's really, really hot. In what world do you think it really needs a hat?
Like you say, all your sisters parent quite differently. And so even though your parents might be slightly
used
more
to some
prepared
rules,
to the reality, it still different for each child about what.
And that speaks volumes because we're identical. You'd think we would parent all in the same way, but we don't.
Yeah, whereas my parents had nothing to go on really,
No.
and just had whatever their expectations were. I mean, in relation to grandparents, I think a big thing that shocked me was how much modern parenting, it relies on a lot of support from grandparents. Like,
well, if you don't want to pay for your child to be in nursery every day, you kind of have to.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to know from listeners how much like grandparents and stuff are involved, but of our friends and people we know, like often grandparents are quite involved in childcare.
And most of our friends, like we did when they went on their first big kind of summer holiday abroad, they took the grandparents with them, because if not, you've got no time to kind of enjoy yourself.
Anyway, we're coming to the end of our episode here, so I hope you've enjoyed listening. How's the crafting gone? Well, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see and decide for yourself.
I can't even remember what it looks like, so I'm just going to say it looks brilliant.
As always, we are not experts by any means. We don't claim to have any skill in anything we do. So, we're just having a bit of fun. And if you've got a better craft or thing you'd like to share, we'll feature it on the episode.
Or if you have a really funny reality that you didn't realise till you had a child.
Yeah, we'd
love to hear it.
Love to hear it. And before we go, as promised, we have a parenting tip from one of our listeners. No,
from me.
No, we have one from you. As this is... Well, in future episodes, we'll gather tips from you, the listeners.
Currently, it seems to be me and my family that give tips, because none of this has actually been released yet. My tip is, if you are planning a birthday party, a little bit before the birthday, maybe a week, check out Facebook Marketplace. Because there's so many parents who've done like a big party and have the huge balloon arches and are just giving them away for free or for like a couple of pounds, And there's a lot of stuff on Facebook where parents have already spent that money doing something, and they're just going to give that away.
Not even just parties. Most of our journey as parenthood has been buying stuff on Facebook.
Yeah, because it's a lot cheaper.
We've bought very few stuff brand new. So it depends on your circumstances and what you're after. But
I
feel like these days buying stuff secondhand is a good way to go.
It is, definitely. And then once you're over that stage, you can put it back on Facebook. Like, it just goes, you know.
Yeah.
Because most people, you're only going to use it 1 or 2 months.
Yeah.
Still in great condition.
Yeah.
Put it back on Facebook. Like our cot, put it back on Facebook.
Yeah. Prams, pushchairs.
Yeah.
Do a lot of that, circulating them around on Facebook.
Yeah.
Have a second life. Great tip.
That's the tip.
If you have your tip you'd like to share with us, we'll feature it on a future episode. Get in touch, either on YouTube or on our Instagram at don'twakethebaby_podcast.
On the Facebook thing.
On our Facebook community of listeners, join with us there. And until next time,
don't wake the baby.
sleep well. Bye.
Night.
Shh.